Welcome to Douchebag Cinema. I'm your host, Some Douche. Over the years, the big screen has been graced by the theatrical skills of many a gifted athlete thespian. Seminal films such as Suburban Commando and Kazam have proven that talent in the world of sports usually translates into unforgettable performances on the silver screen. However, knowing that more than one athlete thespian on the screen at any given time might be more than what a normal audience can handle, film studios never dare combine the raw power of multiple of these performances in the same film. That is until Warner Brothers boldly broke all established conventions for traditional storytelling on the big screen with Michael Jordan's classic Space Jam. Released in 1996, Space Jam broke grounds by not only pairing the most beloved NBA player of the 90s with a cartoon rabbit, but also by daring to showcase more players-turned-performers together than anybody had seen before. Think the Avengers of Athlete Thespians.
EEG.
In his writings on Zen Buddhism, D.T. Suzuki explains, if one really wishes to be a master of an art, technical knowledge of it is not enough. One has to transcend technique so that the art becomes an artless art growing out of the unconscious. It is with this in mind that Space Jam proceeded to not only transcend technique, but bypass it completely in order to craft a level of performance not seen before in a feature film.
Well, I stunk up the place.
Take this scene as an example. In it, a group of cartoon alien things rob some of the most famous 90s NBA players of their talent to play basketball, thus raising the level of challenge for the director, for not only does he have to work with a group of basketball players who can't act, but also a group of basketball players who now can't play basketball either. This bold approach quickly proves fruitful in the very next scene, where we see the Lakers refusing to play, fearing that they too might lose their beloved skill for the game.
Yeah, it could be invasion of body snatchers.
Yeah.
By mumbling his lines instead of enunciating them like traditional actors, Lakers superstar turned actor Vlade Divac challenges the audience to engage with the story in a much deeper way than what they are accustomed to. For if the audience is not willing to analyze every single line of dialogue that comes out of Vlade's mouth, they might not understand a single word of what he has to say.
Yeah, it could be invasion of body snatchers.
Yeah.
Stanislavski couldn't have enunciated that line better himself. As the film progresses and Michael Jordan is kidnapped by a group of cartoon characters, the challenge for this athlete thespian rises. For as of this moment, our protagonist is not simply acting against equally untrained performers, but he will now have to hold his own against veteran thespians who have been honing their craft for over 70 years.
Bugs Bunny?
You were expecting maybe the Easter Bunny?
You're a cartoon, you're not real.
Not really. If I weren't real, could I do this?
It is from this scene on that the success of the film depends entirely on this untested performer's ability to imagine living in a batshit crazy cartoon world.
All right, he's okay.
What's going on here?
In her book, Directing Actors, Judith Weston explains, powerful actors must connect with something powerful in the script or else they can't commit their imaginations. A good actor who is uncommitted imaginatively will look like he is walking through a role. It may not be possible for an actor to engage and listen with other actors until he has worked out the choices that illume the emotional center of the script. This emotional center is explored in this same scene where our protagonist becomes aware of the life-threatening danger his loony co-stars would be in if they lost a basketball game against the dreaded Monstars.
We're gonna be locked up like wild animals and then trotted out to perform for a bunch of lowbrow, bug-eyed, fat-headed, humor-challenged aliens.
Luckily for his cartoon counterparts, Michael Jordan is very aware of what it is like to perform for a bunch of lowbrow, bug-eyed, humor-challenged basketball fans in the real world and immediately sympathizes with the Toons in order to keep them safe from such a horrible ordeal.
Let's play some basketball.
But a hero isn't complete without an ally, and in the 90s, there was only one man who could step up to become the Sancho Panza to Jordan's Quixote.
Michael! Is it really you? Thank God you're all right. You're all right.
In his book, The Writer's Journey, Christopher Vogler states, heroes on their journeys may need someone to travel with them, an ally who can serve a variety of necessary functions such as companion, sparring partner, conscience, or comic relief.
I may not be very tall, but I'm slow.
And large.
And a dork.
It is only now that the protagonist has assembled his complete roster of animated and live action allies that he is ready to enter the third act of the film, where the game of the century will be held between our cadre of charismatic toons and their roided-out rivals. Now, if you are a student of the sports film genre, you will know that historically our heroes never fare well in the beginning of the third act.
But, Mommy, I don't want to go to school today.
This defeat is necessary, for it gives way to one of the most important staples of the genre, the last-minute motivational speech.
When you take that field today, you've got to lay that heart on the line, man.
I want you to put each other in your hearts forever. Because forever is about to happen here in just a few minutes.
If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
I want you to go across this ring and knock that son of a bitch down.
That's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing.
Are you with me or not?
Luckily for our protagonist, his animated colleague understands the psychology behind his cartoon brethren and offers a solution seldom seen in children movies: abusing performance-enhancing drugs.
Wow.
Not since Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream have we seen such an explicit look at the psychology of substance-addicted characters.
This goes against everything they taught me in health class.
You want to win or not?
Bottoms up.
But fear not, dear overzealous parents. Your children's favorite cartoon characters aren't really partaking in a drug-fueled attack against their opponents, for this clever wabbit has tricked his teammates in simply thinking they are roiding out, when in reality they've been drinking regular tap water all along.
Play along.
In Professor John Gadam's extensive research in the early 1950s, it is explained that a placebo is something which is intended to act through a psychological mechanism. It may make the patient feel better without any obvious justification, or it may produce actual changes in such things as gastric secretion. Why did Professor Gadam, a founding member of the British Pharmacological Society, need to exemplify his point by talking about flatulence is a subject for a different date. However, it's in the understanding of the nature of this placebo effect that we get to see a more layered performance from our favorite cartoon characters than what we had seen before. For these unwarranted acts of violence are not the effect of any mind-altering drug at all. It is simply who these characters truly are underneath. However, it is in the toons' lax interpretation of the rules of basketball and their general unconcern for the rules of physics that our protagonist finds a way to finally defeat his cartoon foes once and for all by having his body stop making any damn sense whatsoever. Having won the game, the Monstars are now forced to return the NBA players their talent. Which brings us back to the original crux of this video. How does a director balance the raw power of having so many athlete thespians on screen at the same time? The answer might be found in the words of the world's most famous playwright: brevity is the soul of wit. By keeping the scene as brief as humanly possible, there is no danger of the audience overdosing on the sheer magnitude of theatrical talent that results in having so many athlete thespians on screen at the same time.
What's that? I like that, Mike.
Hey, I caught it.
And so, inspired by his friends' return to the sport they love, so does the protagonist decide to leave his questionable career in baseball and make his triumphant return to basketball in the real world.
Fly like an eagle, let that spirit come.
In the decades since its release, there have been many films that proudly display the theatrical prowess of athletes. However, none have had the courage to not only feature so many athlete thespians, but also deprive them of their athletic talent and challenge them to perform next to imaginary characters who are impossible to react to and deliver a piece of classic 90s cinema such as Space Jam.
Can I go home now?
That's it for this episode of Douchebag Cinema. Until next time, keep it douchey. To watch a dissertation about the art of adapting video games to film, click here for our episode on Jean-Claude Van Damme's masterpiece, Street Fighter the Movie. For more episodes of Douchebag Cinema, follow us on social media and don't forget to subscribe or whatever.